Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a lovely that I had the pleasure of meeting about a year and a half ago at a networking event we both attended, and we've managed to stay connected since that time. She's a bright, young, promising attorney, woman of God, and just has a good aura, good spirit about her, and I'm glad that we were able to stay connected, and of course, ultimately arranged this opportunity for her to be a guest on the podcast. She's taken time out of her very busy schedule to do so, looking to share a little bit of her journey to inspire, to encourage, to uplift those who are wondering, what does it take to really deal with, face with, and overcome ultimately the adversities and challenges of life. So without any further delay, let me introduce to you Miss Daphne Benford-Smith. Daphne, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm excited
Yeah.
to have you here, and again for us to get a chance to just kind of know each other a little bit more and hear more about your story. I'm excited to see what you have to share. So, before we jump into our segments for this evening, I do want to give you an opportunity, of course, to introduce yourself to our listening audience. So, if you would kind of tell us, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give them a taste of who exactly is Daphne Benford Smith.
Yes. So I am Daphne Benford-Smith. I am an attorney. I have the privilege of doing trademark law and copyrights, just contract law, just a bunch of business related legal stuff for businesses and entrepreneurs. And I'm even wearing my I Love Trademark shirt. Um, so that's what I do. I am originally from Fort Worth, Texas, but I am currently living in the Houston metropolitan area. And so that's just a little bit of background about me. I I grew up, going to church and everything, and so it's been a big part of my life, and it's a big part of my story, and my different phases and relationships with it have helped me get to this point in my life. So I'm excited to share a little bit about that and just, how it's helped me go from someone who, grew up wanting to be a lawyer to now being one and what that's looked like, in my life now. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
That's great. That's great. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And again, you're doing your thing. Obviously, I followed, since the time I've known you, following your career as an attorney, and it's clear you got your path set for you. And I'm just expecting great and magnificent things to come from that work that you're doing. So, good
Thank you.
stuff. Good stuff. So, um, with that said, let's jump into your story. So, I'm a
All
firm
right.
believer that in order for anybody to truly appreciate one's journey, it's really important that you understand, the foundational basis of it, like where does it all start? And so that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take it back to where it all begins for you. So if you would share
Whew.
with us, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about your growing up, as well as if there's any challenges that you may have encountered that you care to share. Please feel free to do so as well. Just kind of give us an idea what that life was like coming up in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm from there. I'm from Fort Worth. Both of my parents are preachers' kids. And so like I said, I grew up going to church all the time. It was a big part of my life as a kid. Um, uh, Both my grandfathers were ministers, and so it was a fun childhood because I had really, really good grandparents. I mean, we would spend our summers in West Texas. My grandparents, they were from Fort Worth area, but they moved to a small town outside of Lubbock called Lamesa, Texas. And so we would spend our summers there, hang out with cousins, go fishing, getting up at 4 a.m., picking peas and watermelon, just a bunch of country stuff. And just fishing and all of that all the time. And so, I would say my grandparents, both sets, I was very blessed to have really good grandparents that, really just encouraged us, that, you know, took us on adventures, that ensured that we had a fun childhood. And that isn't to say my parents didn't give their best effort with that at all. I do have, very active parents. They've done a lot for me. It's just, it wasn't always easy in our house growing up, because they didn't necessarily always get along with each other. So it'd be a lot of fighting and, that sort of thing going on in the household. And it did affect, um, I'm sure my brother would say the same thing, but it did affect us as kids, being in that type of environment where you have parents that are constantly screaming and fighting and throwing things and that sort of thing. But nonetheless, they did get a divorce, and so that was something that I would say really um, just changed and shifted the trajectory of my life. It forced me to, I guess, kind of grow up in some ways that I wasn't ready to. And just like, acknowledge that, you know, hey, my family's not going to be the same. We're not going to be, one big happy family or one big unit anymore, right? So, and that's a lot for a child to, have to resonate with or even, come to terms with. And so, that was something that was very difficult for us. And, we just wanted to get through school and, get out on our own and try to, you know, be the best that we could be, type of thing. And, um, I made some mistakes along the way. I didn't do too well my first year in college. I didn't even know what to do. And I had parents that went to college. I really didn't know what to do. And it was so bad. I didn't even know that I had to like buy my own textbooks. I was so confused the first day of class. I was like, where are the books? I didn't even know. I didn't even know I had to go to the bookstore and buy books. Nobody told me that. There's just a lot of things that I feel like I had to kind of learn on my own,
Hmm.
either the easy way or the hard way. And more often than not, it was the hard way. But even though I didn't do so well academically, my first year, I mean, it was definitely not good. I was having a lot of fun in college. Um, uh, I started taking it seriously, after my maternal grandfather passed away, because he and I were extremely close, and I really just looked up to him, and his principles on education, really inspired me. And so with that, and then with the help of my parents and other relatives, I was able to get back into school, and I started taking it seriously because I always said since I was little that I wanted to be a lawyer, just like my aunt. One of my aunts is an attorney, my mom's sister, and so I kept that in mind, and I kept going. Um, it was actually around that time that I started, back, you know, being involved with like church related things because quite frankly, I wasn't. I was too busy sleeping in on Sunday mornings my first year of college because I was partying the night before. And so I wasn't really going. But it was important for me to have some type of structure and to try to make that for myself. Um, like I said, I didn't really see an example of that growing up, but I was like, I want to try and create that, and so I tried as much as I did, and I ended up getting good grades the rest of the way, and got into law school, and now here I am. I applied myself while I was in law school, and um, when it was time to study for the bar, I was like, I don't want to ever take this test again because it's a hard test. It was at that time it was 3 days, and I was studying like 8 to 12 hours a day for like 2 or 3 months, preparing for that thing. And I was just like, I don't want to take this test ever again. So we thank the Lord that I didn't have to. That's not to knock anybody that has to, because if you have to take it again, like keep going, because there's no point in giving up. I know some of the best attorneys I know had to take that test more than once, and I mean they are among the greatest attorneys, of all time. But I'm just one of those people that I just don't want to have to deal with anything like that. It's a lot of stress and pressure, and I didn't want to deal with it. My anxiety is too bad, so I'm glad I passed it, and um, I did go into family law for a little bit, um, which was something I did not want to do, and that's because of my own, experience with it as a kid, and you know, divorce and courts and all that didn't really seem appealing to me. 'Cause it would feel like I was reliving that every day.
Mhm.
Um, and it did feel that way. It did feel like that. But thankfully, um, I was able to pull from that experience and help my clients that I had when I was doing family law. So I was able to connect with people in a very unique way. So in that regard, I'm thankful for my experience enabling me to do that, and to understand, the perspective of the parents. Because when I was a kid, I didn't really think that highly of my parents at the time, but now, as an adult and then having done it, I understand it a lot more. So I've grown to like give them more empathy and grace for what they might have been going through, because all I saw at that time was the child's perspective. And I was able to tell the clients I had, this is the child's perspective. And I'm telling you this because I was that child at one point. So
Mm.
um that was a powerful time in my life, but we are so glad it's over. Praise the Lord. Because I cannot deal with dramatic family law cases anymore. I'm sorry. It's not my ministry. Someone else out there absolutely, I know people that love it. They want to do it. And I say, let's all make sure to keep them in our prayers, because I'm not her. 'Cause
Mhm.
it's a hard um, area of the law to have to do day in and day out for like more than a couple of years. But um, it was helpful for what it was. But I'm going all in with my passion, which is helping entrepreneurs and businesses and that sort of thing create, and protect their creations. And so that's what I'm doing. Um, and I love doing that. That's what I've always wanted to do. And so, yeah, that's how I got here.
That's awesome, man. And I love the fact that you made the point of how, yes, family law, when you were practicing in that arena, how it was a struggle, how it was a challenge, but how it actually, you didn't, while it may have been a challenge, you ultimately saw the value in it.
Hmm.
And I don't think you being in family law, even for that time frame that you were in it, I don't think that that was an accident. I think in many ways that was a divine assignment. Wow, because it was like God was preparing you for a path into law. But I think what needed to happen, it just my perspective, I think
Yeah.
there was some healing that needed to happen. And so one of the best
Yes.
ways perhaps for you to heal, or at least to ignite that healing process, was to go in to the calling that you had, but to first start in the very area of pain that you personally had to experience. So as you stated, who better as an attorney who had gone through family law type stuff to be able to
Hmm.
connect, to be able to relate, to be able to empathize with all
Yeah.
parties involved, and to give them a full, clear perspective as to these are the things we all need to think about. That, yeah, we understand that the marriage is not working anymore, but you got to take into consideration how everybody is impacted. And while it's unfortunate that we're facing this divorce situation, the doing it decently and in order as best as you can under the
Yeah.
circumstances is important. That it should not be about
Hmm.
the attacking and the name calling and all of that. We got to think
Right.
big picture. We got to think full circle. And so for you to personally have an experience to draw from, I think it's powerful,
Mhm.
and it was, and that's this is again why I like to start with this beginning portion of the journey and talking about the upbringing, because it speaks to me, speaks volumes to where God is directing you. I'm sure as a kid you didn't fully know and have the full scope of what all this means. All you saw was my parents are not getting along, and ultimately they divorced, and now our family nucleus is all blown up, and why,
Right, exactly.
but that's the essence of why we go through the storms of life that we go through. It's really to prepare us for what lies ahead. We have to be broken a little bit. We gotta stretch some things a little bit, and be uncomfortable a little bit, to ultimately be able to thrive in that calling that God has specifically created and placed in us to serve in. And that's, I
Mhm.
feel like that part of your journey was necessary to take place, just to begin to position you, because you even spoke to, now I love what I do with trademarks, and you talked about, I just love to help people protect their creation. And I think it was
Mhm.
interesting that you, the word of creation, it's like this is their baby,
Yeah.
this is their family in a way, this is their, and so
Mhm.
you're technically you're doing the same thing that you were doing in family law, you're just doing it
In a different way.
in a different way.
Yeah.
But now you can step into that without the pain part of it. Now it's like,
Right.
I want to protect you, because the key thing that you're doing, I'm teaching you the importance of trademarking, so you don't have to experience the pain of loss. Somebody taking something from you
Yeah.
that you felt like, hey, this breaking up that business
That
component.
business,
You
that baby, that idea that you have,
yeah,
that brilliance.
yeah.
Yeah.
I birthed this. I spent months, in some cases years, to create this. And
Yes.
then somebody that I don't know, or maybe sometimes somebody that I did know, took it
Uh-huh.
from me. And
Mhm.
now I'm reliving that whole scenario
Yeah.
all over again. My creation has been broken up. My foundation has been broken. So you're
Mm.
doing the
Yeah.
same thing. It's just leveled up to a different way. And
Yeah.
again, those steps, those storms, those challenges, they had to happen. They didn't feel good, but they had to happen to toughen you up, to strengthen you, to be prepared for what you're in now, and what
Mm.
still is ahead. I think, I
Yeah.
mean, we're not even saying that this is, I've arrived. No, I'm you really still scratching the surface. You're just in the
Yeah.
zone right now, and you're trying to build and build and build on that. And I've, even in the short time that I've known you, seen evidence of you trying to build on that and build on that. And so
Yeah.
I mean, it's a work in progress. But yeah, I think that that's very key, and I appreciate you pointing that out, as well as just your transparency and just sharing what that experience was like. And also, one more thing too was, I totally identify with you when you say about school. I mean, I'm pretty sure you were, it wasn't a matter of you not being bright or anything like that. I mean, I did
No.
well coming in,
Yeah.
coming up in school as well. But then, like you said, that first year in school, sometime that freedom, you kind of get caught up, and
I wasn't used to the
you wasn't
freedom.
used
I
to it,
wasn't used to it.
and
I didn't get to do, and 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 I think, about that, that goes back to, like, just the family nucleus. You know what I mean? Because I've noticed that the kids who, and it doesn't even have to be that your parents are married. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not together. Things happen, right? But you just you come from a more peaceful home environment, to where your parents did things like family vacations. Like they had the means to do that. They had, they put you in extracurricular activities, more than just like the school activities that you can enroll in, like the band or the choir. Like, you were able to do gymnastics or karate or something like that. I noticed that those kids, they tend to, when they go off to college and they get in the first year of college, like, of course it's still going to be new, and you're still going to do things that you may not do, when you get older and a little bit more, like, and your frontal lobe connects. But you're I noticed that there's a difference. Those kids, they go into their first year of college, And even when they kind of go little, they're able to bring it on back. They're able to bring it on back. They're able to do that, because they had that structure, and to some extent I would even consider that a form of freedom, because it's like, oh, I'm interested in that. Okay, I'm gonna enroll you in that. I'm gonna put you in that summer camp. You're gonna go out and meet people. We're gonna go on a family vacation to, all these different states or sometimes different countries for people that do that, right? um and I think that stuff like that is important. And I think that me not having that, you know caused a lot of the things that happened in my story, even up to, adulthood, past undergrad, when we're getting to real adulthood, and, going through the law school thing, and, trying to figure out, what job I want, how I want to approach even working, and, the job market and things of that nature. And just feeling a little bit of um, chaos and disorder.
Mm.
Um, because that's pretty much what was going on last year, a little bit. But just trying to, it's taking longer to figure out, the path that I actually want to walk on.
Right.
And that's really what that comes down to. It's like, being able to distinguish, what you're settling for, and, like, walking, you know in faith, walking into the unknown, knowing and trusting that everything is going to work out, if you want to walk the path that you actually want.
Hmm.
And a lot of how people respond to that is based on the experiences and the things that they were exposed to during childhood.
Yeah.
During childhood.
Yeah.
I think that that's very key. And so you're right. I mean, I was able to explain that to parents while I was doing the family law thing. Um, and even though I'm not doing it anymore, um, I now can have some sort of appreciation for that season. I'm not gonna lie, while I was in it, I felt very stuck. I felt as though I wasn't really gonna ever get out of it, even though I kind of wanted to. And um, but it served its purpose, and I finally had to realize that I just needed to trust and believe and walk in faith and let go of that season of my life,
Hmm.
and go into the one I actually wanted to, and was feeling called to, which is what I'm doing now. But you're right. I am still essentially doing the same thing, just in a different area. Um, And so, yeah, I just wanted to point that out
Yeah.
because
And
that came into
again,
mind.
yeah, and I'm glad you did, because like I said, I mean, you may have felt like, well, I didn't get the luxury of being able to have somebody help me process all that was going on. But now,
Hmm.
sometimes part of that healing, um, comes through you being able to help somebody else that
Yeah.
maybe I wasn't able to experience this. I didn't have somebody that was talking to me like this and helping me
Hmm.
understand it from all perspectives. And because, like what you said earlier, I've grown to now have some empathy and some understanding to what my parents were dealing with, showing them some, some some concern, instead of maybe being judgmental about what they were doing. Not to say that it was right to be arguing and fighting and all that stuff, but maybe just understanding that perhaps they were even dealing with some unresolved stuff, and it was coming out against one
Exactly.
another. That's very much
Exactly.
a possibility. So
Exactly. Yeah.
so it's, again, it's always good. We don't think about it in the moment, but as we
Yeah.
mature, not only in age, but of course in your case, as a
Hmm.
believer maturing in Christ, it helps you to really get a clearer perspective, and the pieces start to come together, like why I had to deal with what I had to deal with, why I had to go through, and it allows you to understand and look through it from a lens that God looks at it, and
Hmm.
again,
Yeah.
like I said, not being so judgmental, not being so negative, but saying, okay, what am I supposed to take from this? What am I supposed to draw from all of this? So, and it's clear that you've taken steps in that direction to do just that. So that's good. That's good. So
Thank you.
With that said, as you mentioned, hey, I come up through my childhood. I'm in my law. I'm doing my law school thing. I graduate, get the law degree. I'm an adult now. I'm doing adult things. One of the things that we realize, if you live long enough, you're going to face a series of various storms and moments of adversity and challenges, but there ultimately comes a point where you start to encounter things that hit a little bit heavier. They're a little bit more intense in terms of the dynamics involved in them, and it may get you to a point to where you find yourself in situations where you're like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. Even as a
Mhm.
believer, you may understand the power of prayer. You understand God's word and all of that, but you're still human. And so sometimes
Mhm.
situations hit you, storms hit you that you begin to question that faith is a little shaky. You begin to doubt, how am I going to get through this? This is something that's a little bit more than what I'm used to carrying burden wise. So my question to you, if you would share, tell us about a time when you found yourself in that type of situation where I didn't really know how I was going to get through this one. I had doubts. I had
Yeah.
questions. I didn't know. But again, you're here today, so we know that you survived it.
Mhm.
But again, if you would share with us about a time when you faced such an adversity, and what that journey was like, and what ultimately was the turning point for you to begin to come up out of it and see some light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. So,
Yeah. The time that I felt that was 2022 to 2023. To be honest, if we're talking, post law school and everything, that the past 2 years were pretty difficult. Um, I just I was I was in a place where I was trying to figure things out on my own. I was making some decisions that maybe weren't the best in terms of like just like my career. And this is not to say that I was doing anything that was criminal or unethical or anything like that. It's more so like, you know, I I took a job in a different city. And the reason I moved to the other city was something that was really personal and selfish to me at that time. And it had nothing to do with this job. But I really and truly should not have done that. It was one of those things where I was definitely leaning on my own understanding, so to say, because it's like as soon as, and I'm sure you've encountered something like this before, it's like as soon as you make a decision that's out of alignment, everything is just a mess afterwards. Like you try to make the whole situation work and you try to make everything work, but like literally nothing is working.
mm-hmm,
And that it was something like that. I was honestly very miserable with that job. And this isn't to say that the people there were just mean or anything like that. They were nice. It was just doing family law there was very miserable for me. I didn't want to really do family law anyway at that point. Like I had started to feel the burnout of doing that practice because it's such a highly stressful, highly emotional, sometimes highly volatile between the clients or the parties involved, practice area. And after a while, stuff like that, on top of like the politics of judges and other lawyers and all that, after a while, that stuff can really just weigh you down. And when you're working at a place that's, you know, expecting you to be all about work and all about that thing, some law firms are like that, some aren't, but I was at one at that time that was. Um, it was just very hard on me. And, um, I was I would it's so crazy. I would go on my lunch break sometimes, and eat in my car somewhere far away from the office and just cry because I didn't be there. And I didn't want to do this thing anymore. things are falling apart, um, in other ways. And so I was just like, I want to open up my own law firm, right? I wanted to open up my own practice because I knew I wanted to get into trademarks and everything, and I had tried to, find another job, get another job like at a law firm or a company doing in-house or just anything, but nothing was working. And so I made a decision at that point to do my own law firm. I started working part-time at that job I was working full-time at. And I wasn't making as much money. They weren't really paying me that well at that firm anyway, but now my checks were even more, reduced because of me saying I'm gonna only work part-time here while I try to build my law practice. Um, and that year, for some people that might sound like, oh, that's not too bad, but that year was like, a very like financially unstable and difficult year for me, right? Like it was, um, uh, I didn't, I wasn't making anything to really do anything at all. I had enough money to pay my rent, and after that, like it was kind of like I had to figure something out for like my groceries or just for anything like that. And so, I had finally I thought I had finally caught a break when I um, uh, started talking with this law firm about, possibly joining them. And so, I had gotten on with them for like a little bit. We were all just trying to see where this goes, and um, it was one of those situations where I wanted to work for them more than they wanted me to work for them, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Like, and it
Mhm.
showed. It's kind of like even in a romantic relationship, like you don't want, somebody, you don't want to be in a relationship with someone that that you want more than they want you, because then it's very one-sided. They're not
Mhm.
they're not going to fight for you. They're not going to cater to you. They're not going to say, "Hey, we really want you to work for us." It's more so like, prove to me why, we should give you a chance. And so it was like one of those dynamics. But I was in a place where I didn't care. I wanted stability. I wanted a stable income. I had that month that we met, actually, I had reached, um, I had gotten a surplus of clients. It was feeling like, okay, maybe this is going to work. Maybe this is going to be great. I'm finally getting what I wanted. But then, like that next month, it was like, ooh, it didn't
Mhm.
last. And so, people say and talk about the ebb and flows of entrepreneurship, but that was like, that was one of those, like, it flowed very well, then it ebbed really bad. Like it was a lot. And so, I got on with them, and um, the pay was decent, so I was just like, I'll be able to, afford to just take care of myself again, because it had gotten so bad that month before I started working there that, like, I couldn't even buy food. Like I was practically starving. I had people, like, giving me money just so I could be able to get something to eat, and that was very tough for me. Um, and so that situation did not end the way that I wanted it to. Um, like, I think it was what, 2 or 3 days after my birthday, they ended up laying me off. And truth be told, they couldn't really afford to have an associate, and so it was one of those things that it really just didn't work out. But I tried to, say, you know what, I'm gonna cry it out, I'm gonna persevere, and I'm gonna just do some great things. And I ended up doing that. I spoke at a really big trademark conference. I conducted a really good panel there. I wrote some blog articles for that same entity, and they were named last year. They were named in the top 10 blog posts for their company. So, I was like, okay, we're cooking with some grease here. We're doing
Mhm.
something. And but the thing of it is, it's like no matter how much I connected with people and was able to really just draw them in, I was still struggling. Like I didn't really know how to really utilize my resources. And I think that that's what it was. I'm saying this in hindsight, right? But um or something, because it didn't matter what I did, it didn't really work out the way that I wanted it to with my law firm. Um, and somebody told me, and I'm inclined to agree with her now, that it's because I was forcing it to happen, and that door needed to close because there's something else for me. I didn't see it that way at the time because I can be a little stubborn with that. But I was just like, no, I want it to work. Like I want this to work so bad, right? So I was really just trying to make it work, and things were only getting worse and worse. And uh, it was when I met or when I started dating my now boyfriend, that he actually encouraged me, and honestly prayed with me about the decision. And so I ended up returning back to family law for a spell. And I worked at a few family law firms. It really just didn't work out. One of them, um, ideological differences, and I ended up getting a what I thought at the time was a dream job offer, from this other law firm, and um, it didn't turn out to be a dream, and I'll just leave it at that. It was, to be quite honest, a very toxic environment, and not necessarily ideal for me, and not what I wanted in a work environment. So I left that job, and just started kind of working part time for people just so I could make ends meet. And doing some studying for trademark law, and still trying to apply for jobs for that. And I've been, I had gotten to a point where I was just very discouraged. I was feeling very like unaccomplished because I'm seeing other classmates that are, they're being promoted, they're working at these jobs, they found a job that they love, they found something that they're passionate about, and they're doing it. They're able to pay for these expensive trips, and buy all these lavish things, and I'm over here just like I can't even, I can't afford any of that. Like I feel like I can't do anything. I'm struggling just to, you know, uh take care of myself, just to take care of my health. And my I found out I had some health issues last year. I found out I had all these different allergies, and I was eating stuff that could kill me. And it was just I now I have to be able to afford the food and the proper things that I need to eat, and so it was it's been very difficult. um I'm still working through it, but at the same time, you know this, like the past couple of weeks, I've seen just a surplus in, you know, things being revealed to me in the best way possible, opportunities, I just clarity and opportunities abound, so
Hmm.
it that's why I said before we started, and I'll say it now, I've been feeling like I was in a Job season. I was in a very toxic relationship last year, and that ended. Um, and then it's like as soon as that ended, I was like, I'm fine, like I'm good, whatever. Then I meet the most amazing person ever, and then we end up together, and we're still together, and we're happy. But this person has really poured so much into me to where it's helped me get through this season of my life where I just feel like a lot of loss. Like, I've gone through a few jobs at this point. I was living with my mom last year for a long time before I got my own apartment again. I didn't feel my best. I didn't feel successful. I started out working for a place and I felt like I was on top of the world. I kind of did. I was doing all these different things and having a great grand old time, and then the pandemic happened, and stuff started changing, and I didn't want to do family law anymore. Then I moved and I took that job, see, and then doing that and moving to Dallas, trying to chase in behind some person, to be quite honest with you. It's led me to this point. So I blamed myself a lot for that because I felt like the prodigal son, like I just went off on my own way and did some things that I felt at the time just like ruined my life. Like maybe I would be doing as great as my classmates if I didn't do that, right? But it's led me to this point, and it's allowed me to meet people like you. It's allowed me to meet, some of the most amazing people ever. And um it's really just been a blessing to me growth wise, because there were a lot of things that I needed to just heal and address, learn from. Now I feel like I have, because of that. And um there's been a lot of good to come out of it. There's been a lot of good to come out of it. Now I see it.
That's great. That's great. Very powerful story. You hit a lot of key topics here. So again, I appreciate your transparency and sharing that. One thing that stood out to me in particular, obviously, is when you talk about that entrepreneurial journey. God places His vision on your heart for something that He's desiring for you to do, for you to walk in. And a lot of times, if for those who haven't had a chance to walk that path, it's not something that just happens. And you go through that season of, okay, I'm gonna step out and I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna open up my own law firm. And
With
then, and
no
like I said,
plan.
with no plan, or maybe you had a plan, and things maybe kick off a certain way. It looks like it's
Yeah.
rolling, and then all of a sudden, it's not. And the struggle with that, because that's a lot of times, and again, even to myself, I've oftentimes, and I've shared this on the podcast before, and with others, is just that there's that tugging inside that says, okay, yes, you've been working a 9 to 5 for many years, good career, all of that stuff, no, nothing to really complain about, but at the same time, there's this calling that's pulling at you, and it feels right, it feels good, you see it clearly in the direction that you want to go, but what happens is you've gotten so comfortable with that I know the check comes every 2 weeks and I know what it is and I can pay this and I can pay that or whatever, and it can be
Yes.
really hard to let that go, and that's where that's one of the biggest tests that God puts us in, where He's saying, look, I wouldn't have given you this vision if I didn't already have it worked out, to your good. Now, I'm not going to sit here and promise you that you're just going to jump into this and become a multimillionaire overnight and everybody loves you.
Hmm.
There's some some toiling that you're going to have to do. There's some sacrificing that you're going to have to make. It's going to stretch you in ways that you've never perhaps experienced before, but in the end, it's going to all be worth it, and you're going to understand ultimately why you had to go through what you go through. So when I hear you tell your story, um and I know you're still technically in the midst of it, it's just that's what we have to understand, that it takes work to get to that point. It's like when you had the conversations about just working out. I
Yeah.
want to get in shape. I
Yeah.
want to do this. Okay, well, it's more than just getting the cute clothes to work out in and signing up for the membership or whatever. You're gonna have to do some sweat, and you're gonna have some days where you
Hmm.
ache because you've been running or
Yeah.
lifting or squatting or whatever. But with the consistency in doing it and going through that journey, ultimately you start to begin to see the gains that comes. But
Hmm.
you have to be willing to put in the work, and you have to be willing to deal with, again, some of the challenges that go along with it. And another thing that you pointed out is, and it's not so much that you should be blaming yourself or whatever, but again, sometimes God allows us, when He sees us kind of trying to go our way and trying to do it on our own. sometimes he has to stand back and say, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let you do that. I'll be here when you're done, but I'm gonna let you go ahead and do
Yeah.
it your way. Because since you seem to know it all, let me let you do
You know
you.
it.
And
Mhm.
and sometimes
Mhm.
that's necessary. We gotta bump our head, we gotta fall down a few times,
Mhm.
and then eventually we get tired
Yeah.
of that, and you're like, okay,
Mhm.
maybe I need to do it your way. But he allows us to go through that, really not to see us suffer, not to see us hurt, not to see us go
Right.
through difficult times. It's more about, if I let you go through this and see that trying to do it on your own is not how I designed you to be, you will now perhaps have an understanding that I want you to be dependent upon me, because
Yeah.
I can be that strength that you don't have. I can be that for you. Those resources that you don't have, I can be that for you. Um, those troubles that you're
Mm.
trying to figure out, and you losing sleep and hair falling out and ulcers and headaches and all of that, you doing that, you don't have to. I got this. You just need to trust me. You just need to lean on me. You just need to make sure that I am the head of it all. And
Yes.
you talked about, some of
Surrender.
these, right, you have to surrender. And you talked about these different law firms. It felt good, it seemed right, but it wasn't working. Why wasn't it working? Because, as you said, a friend of yours says, well, because you weren't supposed to do that. It was, I think, sometimes at one part of my prayer, when I talk to God each day, I not only thank him for the people, places, and platforms that he allows me access to, but I also thank him for even more. And I think I even mentioned that when you heard me speak that at the event. I thank him
Yeah.
even more for the people, places, and platforms that he blocks me from, because
Mm.
there was a point in time where I'd be in my feelings. Wow, I should have got that. This should have been. But now I've
Yeah.
gotten to a point where I understand, maybe that door was closed because there was some pitfalls and some landmines waiting for you that you couldn't see, but he saw,
Mm.
and he didn't want
Yeah.
you to step in that. Or
Yeah.
perhaps it was a decent opportunity. It wasn't something that was horrible, but if you take it, you'd be settling. And you even mentioned that you'd be
Mm.
settling. And so
Yeah.
sometimes he says no, he blocks you from that, because I just don't want you to settle. Because, see, if you settle, then you're not going to be able to live out the full essence of what I've created you for and what I have for you. You're taking it
Mhm.
because, again, it's comfortable over there, especially if you're in the midst of struggling. And I totally understand from a human perspective, if I'm struggling to buy food, struggling to keep the lights on and all
Yeah.
of that, it's
Yeah.
real hard to, even as a believer, it's real hard to pitch. You just hang on in there, just starve, you just make it.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
That's easy to say
That's
on the
what it was.
outside, but I'm hungry.
Yeah.
you know,
Say I'm hungry
I-
and I'm sitting here having to see people I was literally sitting next to in class
right,
eating
right,
at, Del Frisco's every Monday or something. And I'm sitting over here like, can I even get a hamburger helper?
right,
Like
right.
it's
and
it's stuff like that.
hmm and even to that, that was something that I remember my mom even telling me, growing up. She used to, used to always tell me, never be envious or jealous of what other people have, because you don't know what price they pay to have it. And even
Yeah.
from a godly perspective, we're not supposed to be, craving and desiring what other people have. He has our portions for each and every person. Again, you don't know what they're doing, what they're going through. I'm sure there's many people who look at you. I mean, just before you shared the story that you've just shared so far this evening, I would have never known, just from my encounters with you. People, and I know this is a cliche type of statement. You don't look like you've been through that. You don't. I would have never thought that
Oh,
was a
yeah.
struggle or a challenge you have. I mean, whether I see you in person, whether I see things on social media, but we know that there's a lot of people who suffer in silence. There's a lot of people who are going through, and this is why this is, this platform is so key. It's so important, because it's an opportunity to let people know you are not the only one going through
Going through
challenging
that.
and difficult times. Don't be confused into
Yeah.
thinking that just because I wear my mask well, that I am well. Don't assume that. We
Oh,
all
I
go
like that.
through
Yeah.
we all going through our storms. We all do.
Yeah.
It's how are
Yeah.
we handling them? How are we processing them? Are we trying to do it on our own strength, on our own merits, or are we leaning into the proper source? And as you know, again, as a believer, you understand that source is God. And sometimes we
Yeah.
drift. Sometimes we get to feeling ourselves and think we know it, and we have to learn those lessons. But
Yeah.
again, this is all a part of the journey. It's all necessary. You had to be shown what it looks like when you do it on your own versus when you lean in God. And now you're beginning, as you stated, you're beginning to see some of the fruits of that. You're beginning to see the
Yeah.
light is starting to come out. Okay. And then he connects you with, after coming out of, like you said, after coming out of a toxic relationship, he connects you with a new relationship where you got somebody who's clearly appears to be supportive and encouraging and obviously a praying man.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what you need. You need that support network around you,
Yeah.
whether it's by way of a boyfriend, whether it's by way of friends or family who understand your worth and your value and genuinely want to see the best for you.
Yes.
I'm glad that you have that around you right now. And like I said, it's becoming, it's revealing to you. It's God is showing you because now you're trusting more and more. You're leaning more and more into Him, and that's how. And I have to go on through the same process myself. I'm not at the plateau where I want to be. There's still a whole lot I want to get to, but the more and more I lean into Him, the more and more He's able to reveal to me. The less likely I'm stressing about stuff like I used to. The stuff I
Mm.
used to stress about a year or 2 or 5 years ago, I don't stress. I either don't stress about it at all, or I don't stress as much as I used to because I'm learning that I don't have to do that. That's not for me.
Right.
I
Right.
just you glean from the storm. You now look at storms as opportunities instead of storms as being
Mhm.
this negative event in your life. You know,
Right.
because I can't recall personally any storm that I've gone through over the course of my life that didn't ultimately end up being a blessing. It didn't feel
Mm.
good
It
along
didn't
the
feel good in
way
the moment.
in the moment,
Right.
but
Right.
you know, last time I checked, God was undefeated, and in all
Yeah.
battles and all storms, and I can't name one instance in the entirety of my life where He actually, fell short and let me down, or didn't come through for me when I needed it, even in the darkest of moments, things that
Mhm.
people have no knowledge of, or maybe only your immediate family know about, or not, and maybe even
Right.
barely that. People see you all the time.
Right.
And they say, "Oh, you all such a good spirits all the time, just smiling and all that." Well, yeah, part of that is that's just how I am, but also part of it is I understand who's in control and who's in charge. That's what allows
Mhm.
me to smile. I might not be feeling my best mentally or
Right.
emotionally,
Exactly.
but I can smile because I know that I'm covered, that I have somebody who has my back, who has all the authority, all the power, all the wisdom, and it's going to work itself out. I don't need to know the particulars. I don't need to know the detail. All I need to do is operate in obedience and lean on Him for understanding and guidance and direction. And I know I'm going to be okay. So that's what allows me that joy, that peace, that calm that I desire versus the other negative energies of the stress and the worry and and the strain and the pressures and the depression and all of that stuff that just,
Yeah.
that the
And
devil
that's
loves that,
tough. Oh, yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, I was there. I was there for a while. Um, but I feel like, you know, what you said was very powerful. And it speaks to faith, just knowing that you're covered, even though I'm on this boat and there's a storm all around me, I can sleep peacefully. Like, how Jesus slept peacefully on that boat, which I don't know how anybody could do that. If a
right, right.
storm is going on with a little bitty boat, like, no,
Like,
no.
hey.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, no, I can't do that. But um it's stuff like that, that has helped me, just to like change my perspective and my perception of things. Like, you know I like to kind of see it as like what we call a tower moment, where it's like, yes, everything is falling apart, but it's falling apart for, something else to come up,
Mhm.
for, you know, uh, something else to be built in its place, or, just toiling at the soil, it may not. if I were soil, it probably wouldn't feel good, but it's like seeds are being planted. Seeds are
Hmm.
being planted, things are being watered, things are going to grow. And you may not understand it or know what that is right in the moment of it. But eventually you will. And that's not even to say, or try to trivialize or villainize people going through mental health issues. I mean, that is something that's just like, it's a very real thing. And sometimes when you're in the moment, you're feeling anxious and depressed and whatever else, like your mind can't readily get there. And that's why, I do meditation, I pray, I breathe, I try to do what I can. Um, but it's not easy, but once you're out of it, then you're able to see clearly, like, you know what, wait a minute, my life isn't too bad. I like to do the whole like make a list of things I'm grateful for. Like last week, I wasn't sure how a few things were going to get done. Every single thing got done, like in the most miraculous way, in the most like divine way. And it's funny actually, we talked about settling and you brought that back up. Um, I had an old job that I worked at, and that was the one I actually left voluntarily. Um, they had offered me my job back, and this was around like the first week of this year. They had offered me my job back, and I was just like, I just feel like I can do better than this. Like, I feel like this is the time where I get to choose to walk into the unknown, to have faith, to surrender versus going back to a familiar place and being comfortable, and not really being happy at all with this decision, but doing this because like I feel like I can control it. Like I know what this entails. I know how they operate. I know when I'm gonna get this, when I'm gonna get that, etc. Right? So, and it was a lot of money at the time because it's like I didn't have a job. I had lost, the job I had, and I'm over here just like, kind of winging it right now. I'm still covered. Everything's still taken care of somehow, but like, I turned it down. And like I said, the people in my life, they're like, hey, we support you. We support you. We want you to do what you're being truly called to do. And so I did that, and now things are actually going better than I had planned, and an opportunity, a really wonderful dream like opportunity has presented itself, and everything has been great. So um, that was definitely a moment where I had to choose, to settle or to have faith, and that time I chose faith because I was tired of choosing to settle for
Hmm.
something less. I was tired of it.
I love that.
Hmm.
I love that. And again, that's a sign of spiritual growth. When you can turn down that which you back in the past you would have ran to it, and now you're like, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thanks for thinking of me. I'm gonna have to pass on
Right.
that. What?
Right,
Yeah. I'm gonna have
exactly.
to pass on that. Well, is it the money? No, actually, it's not really about. It's just no. It's just not. It's just not what I want to do. It's just not the path that I'm on. So that's to me, that's a sign
Exactly.
of growth and spiritually and again as that faith builds stronger and stronger with God and understanding He's in control. I think we get better at making those type of decisions and feeling good about it. No regrets.
Right.
Not second guessing it. Oh, did I make a mistake? No, you did exactly what you're supposed to do. Don't devalue yourself. Don't minimize yourself. You were placed with a vision for a reason.
Hmm.
And again, if you recall when I did my talk, it was like, you know, I consider when you're an entrepreneur, when you've been placed with a vision on your heart, a calling, that's divine. Everybody can't. There's people. Anybody can go out and start a business, but everybody can't be a visionary. Everybody can't be an entrepreneur. That's to me. That's the difference between entrepreneurship and just being a business owner. Because entrepreneurship, there's a vision element that's to it. You're looking
There
to
is,
create.
yeah.
You're looking
Hmm.
to do something that's never been done before, or if it's been done before,
Hmm.
you're looking to put a spin on it that's different
Right.
than other people who are in that same role or field. So
Mhm.
that, and to me, that's where the divine calling of it comes in. And so when you have that, yeah, you have to understand, you have to embrace what that is. Because I've even been getting, uh dealt with from people around me who, have been very supportive of, my venturing off into the podcast and some other things. And they're like, they keep telling me, because sometimes I'll make the mistake of, kind of downplaying the podcast in the sense of saying, I mean, I enjoy what I do. It's just cool. It's just, it's just, kind of just making it seem simplistic and regular. And they're like, no, no, Joe,
Yeah,
you're not gonna do
no.
that. No, this,
Right.
what you're doing is not normal. And I'm like,
Mhm.
because in your mind, it's real easy to fall into that trick back where you're thinking, well, there's thousands of podcasts out here. But yeah, there are. But
There are,
what you're
but
doing is that's not
mhm.
what you are doing is not normal. The impact that it's having is not normal, and you need to
Mhm.
own that and not quit being
Right.
so. They pick on me and say, well, "Quit being so modest. Quit being so. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
No, you need to be acting. Be bold with it." And that's that's
Mhm.
that's
I
the spirit of
agree.
what entrepreneurship is about. We got to be bold in what
Right.
we're doing. If you about that trademark, we know there's tons of trademark attorneys, but you got to be bold because he's God placed a specific vision on you in your heart. You're gonna be a different trademark because you come with a trade. You're a trademark attorney that has God in
Mhm.
within her. That's so you gonna hit it a little different, just like you did in family law. You were able to hit that a little different than just dealing with the cases. You have a different perspective. It's full circle. It's a reason why you're doing what you're doing, and it's going to uniquely stand out amongst the crowds of everybody else that's doing it. So the sooner we embrace
Yeah.
that, and the sooner we understand who we need to rely upon, we just make the path easier for ourselves to get to where we need to get to and begin to actually experience those blessings. And what we used to think, and I think that's going to even happen for both of us, is that
Yeah.
you'll even get to the point, the stuff that you used to be low key jelly about, you'd be like, oh, I was tripping because they used to travel here, or they used to eat there. That's my that's my snack. That's my that's my little weekend getaway. What they
No,
think is the, the
that's just
the
a
annual
Tuesday for
trip.
me.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's what I'm saying. But that's the mold you get in, because it's like you realize that what you
Right.
that you, what you was putting great value in really wasn't all that special or
It
important at all. And the things
wasn't.
that you should have
Yeah.
been putting value in, you start to learn, I need to make more of that part. So it's a
Mhm.
different shift in mindset as to how you look at it. So
Exactly.
yes,
Exactly.
yes, absolutely. So
That's powerful.
yeah, and again, as I'm talking to you, I'm trust and believe I'm talking to me too.
Yeah,
And
no, like
that's what I
this.
love about these conversations, because it's
Yeah.
not just me, calling myself instructing or schooling anybody. I mean,
Yeah, no,
I
yeah.
I walk away many times from these podcasts feeling like I learned more about
You
me
learn
than I
something
did.
than the other
I'm
person.
preaching to myself, talking to myself.
No,
So,
yeah. This
so
has
yeah,
been
this
great.
is.
I mean, I feel like this conversation was very timely. I do not think this is a coincidence because, everything you're saying, it's like resonating with me, or I'm getting like even more nuggets about, just the things that I was going through. And, I just felt like I got kind of like that confirmation, like, no, this is to strengthen you, this is to grow you,
Mhm,
this is to stretch you, this is to build that perseverance, this is to really make you ready for like the next chapter. That's what
exactly.
this is, or like this next cycle of life. And so that's what that's what I feel like it is now. When I was really just in the thick of it, it just felt like, again, why am I going through this? And you get the comparisons and everything. But like you said, what was annual for somebody else might be just another Tuesday afternoon for me.
Hmm.
So who knows? And that's not even to try and, build myself up or anything. It's more so just like you said, just to, focus on your own garden, tend to your own garden. My therapist
Hmm.
also tells me that a lot. Like, you don't even know what that is over there. That you think it's grass and you think the grass is greener. That could have been, that could be some little fake grass they bought at Lowe's or something. Like, you don't know what's over there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Here it is. You have a real growing grass. Like the grass is growing. It just may not be as fast as, what may appear over there, but that's probably nothing over there. But fake grass. and something like that. So words like that really help, and I appreciate everything you're saying. It's definitely a blessing to me, I will say. Even in the midst of
That's
us talking about it, it's been a blessing for sure.
that's good, and that's what I want it to be for for both of us. I mean, just allowing God
Yeah.
to just pour into us and release from us what we need to hear. Sometimes we just need to hear
Hmm.
ourselves say it and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, why didn't I think of that? I just said that, but why did that's not how
Why
I've
didn't I
been
think of it
walking. That's
before?
not how I've been talking. That's not what I've been doing. Or like you said, it may be that
Exactly.
confirmation of something that's been on my mind, and then okay, you just answered your own
Hmm.
question, through
Right.
God speaking to you and saying, okay, there it is. You asked for this. You prayed on this. You just said it. Now do
Yeah,
it.
there it is.
You
Now
know,
do it.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, that's good stuff. So Daphne, when you do find yourself dealing with, you started to talk a little bit about this, but when you do find yourself dealing with different adversity moments, challenges, or what have you, I am curious to know what routine do you like to, what regimen do you like to follow that sort of helps you to process challenges? I mean, like I said, it obviously we talked about some real heavy stuff, but we also know that just regular everyday annoyances, problems come our way that here's something that I done came home to, or something that I done found out at work today, or whatever, that I got a problem, a issue that I got to deal with. What is your routine? What works for you that to helps you to sort of process this in an appropriate and a positive way, but it just helps you to be of a clear mindset so you can come up with the right path, the right resolution way to go about getting through whatever that moment of adversity is.
Yeah. I would say I'm big on community.
Hmm.
So usually I would talk to a trusted friend, trusted person. A lot of times it is my boyfriend, but it could be someone else that I know, you know, I can just have an honest and vulnerable conversation with, know that it's a safe space where I'm heard, that they may decide to give me some really good words of encouragement, whether it's scripture based or not. Maybe it's just something that's like normal to psychology, I don't know. But they'll give me something like that. I am big into meditation, and I know um a lot of and I don't know where you fall on this, but just to be fully transparent, I know that there are some people that are Christians that aren't really big on it, but my grandfather, who was a minister for like over 40 years, he was big on meditation, and so I learned it from him first.
Hmm.
And and there's a way to incorporate your faith in it if that's something you want to do.
Hmm.
But I take more of a psychological approach to it. I do um, study and read up on just like Eastern practices with that, because I feel like I think it's actually very positive. It's very powerful in that it helps you to just quiet your mind. And then at that point, you're able to really tap in and hear and distinguish like what's the voice that you really need to listen to, like the voice of God, or, something like that. Um, uh, or even your intuition in some ways, or if it's just a bunch of outside noise, a lot of negativity, like from the enemy or from just whatever. Like it helps you just to really just center yourself. I do mindfulness. I'm big on that. Um, I like doing square breathing where you, was it inhale for four, hold for
Hmm.
four, out for four. Yeah, so I like to do
Yeah.
that. You know, I I I'm really big on those things. Sometimes I do affirmations. I might I might do Pilates. I might do yoga. So I'll just do something very select to play video games. That's one of my big things. Or I'll watch, a comforting show. And then
Hmm.
more often than not, when I do relaxing things like that, I'm able to come back to it with a whole different mindset. I'm calm now. I've gone from 100 back to about five. So it's like
Yeah.
I know, um, at that point, okay, I know how I can handle this, or I know how I can face this. I have a solution to this issue, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't have a solution. Maybe the solution is to be still right
Mm-hmm.
now. Maybe the solution is just to rest and nurture myself. So I'll just keep playing my video game or, eating some good food, watching TV, talking on the phone about literally anything else, right? Like, that sometimes the thing to do is nothing at all. And I've had to learn that the hard way because I'm a doer. I'm an impatient person. I like to just do things right then. I like to get my results right then and there. And I've been told many a times, just be still, sit down,
Mm-hmm.
rest, relax. It's okay. Even God rested. Like just take a breather, and I think that that's really more so what helps. I think that's really powerful. More of us need to learn how to rest. We're always on our phones. We're always, trying to do something, trying to get something, striving. Sometimes you have to cease striving. One translation says cease striving or just be still and know and just relax and
Mm-hmm.
just, kind of like the image I like to get in my mind is, you know, um, when you're swimming and you don't have to always be fighting against the water or swimming and doing the most. Like sometimes you can just float. Sometimes
I
you
like
need to
that.
just float. Yeah,
Yeah.
like sometimes I imagine myself floating. Sometimes you just need to float.
I like that. I like that approach. Just
Yeah.
float, just calm down. Because again, I mean, as I'm sure you know, and I know personally, when you allow your emotions to get all bent out of shape and revved up to 100, you're more likely to make, you know, rush decisions, incorrect
Yeah.
decisions or whatever. Again, and I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, you're still human. So you have a right to have that initial reaction to whatever the
Hmm.
storm is, anger, tears, frustration, annoyance, whatever that is. You can have that, but then there has
Yeah.
to be a moment where you say, okay, let me just let me calm down, let me breathe,
Hmm.
let me find something that I can do that sort of clears my head, relaxes me, and then I can come back to this situation with a clear mind, clear focus, and I'm now ready to receive, what God has to say to me on how to handle this situation. I'm not all worked up. I'm not all super overly emotional about it. I can now hear, I can
Hmm.
now see clearly and be more likely, be in better position to make the correct decision in the matter. So I love the whole
Right.
full scope and, like I said, the float concept. Just float.
The floating. And
Just.
honestly, that takes a lot of patience. And I and
Hmm.
I'm telling you this, whenever I was formed in the womb, somehow or another that was left out. Every other ingredient got in there. And I think I might have just needed to sit on simmer a little bit longer with that, but I did not. I'm not, and that story I gave earlier about, jumping to take that job in another city and all that, that was one of those impulsive decisions. I have been notorious for that, to be honest. I have been notorious to impulsively decide to do something, and it does work out in some ways, but in other ways it's like, okay, now I have this mess to clean up because I made that impulsive decision.
Mm.
And then I started trying to be on the extreme end of I'm afraid to make decisions now because I don't want to make an impulsive decision. And that's where you get the floating idea, where it's like, okay, no, 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 no. We're going to have to make a decision. It doesn't have to be immediately, right this second, because you're impatient and you want to, jump on the gun and make something happen right now, right here today. You don't have to make something happen right here today. Like, it's going to be fine.
Right.
And I think a lot of times, especially when you're in a place where I was in, where it's like, okay, I'm in a financial hardship. I have all these things coming up, rent due, this is due, that's due, this, like everything is due. And you're feeling like, you know, there's like huge fire here and you just have a water bottle, you know, and you're just trying to put out the fire with a water bottle, and you're just like, what am I going to do? I need to do something quick. I got to get this fire. Well, doing that's not going to solve it. You know, it's not going to resolve anything. And I've had to really learn to slow down and make decisions to process. This is still something I am actively working on. So for
Hmm.
anybody watching or listening, do not think I have it figured out. But I can say that it's definitely one of those things that I feel like is important because it ties back into faith. You know, it ties back into relying on another source. It ties back into, like I said, floating
Hmm.
and sleeping on the boat. That's been coming up in my mind a lot lately because it's like it didn't matter what was going on that boat or around that boat. Jesus was sitting on that boat, knocked out, snoring, drool on the side of his face, worrying about nothing in the world. And here it is. I'm over here frantically trying to figure out all these things, and it it's it's crazy. It everything literally was resolved with me having to do nothing. That was the crazy part. And like I said, I'm a doer. Like I feel like it's not going to get done unless I do something. But I've been proven wrong lately because everything has been done and I didn't even have to do anything.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And then again, I keep lingering in my head the float, because I mean, in order to float, and I'm no swimmer, but in order to float, it requires balance. You have to be able to
It
balance
does.
yourself on the water. If I don't have balance, I'm gonna drop under. I'm going under if I, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I'm wailing and
Now you're
swinging and
flailing
kicking
and
and all of
yeah.
that, trying to, you know. But if I'm floating, then I'm just staying
Yeah.
steady. I'm not tripping either way. I'm gonna smooth my way through this, and I'm gonna do it with a peace, with a calm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I love that illustration that you have with that. So, um, Daphne, if you had an opportunity to you think back to all that you've been through, this growth that you've had, the direction that you're going, where you've come from, you know, the woman you were to the woman you are today. If you had a chance to speak to the old version of Daphne. The things that used to get you all bent out of shape, worked up, the directions that you used to go that weren't the best directions to go. If you had a chance to speak to her or speak to somebody that
Mm-hmm.
might be, it could be somebody listening, you know, to this podcast, and they're in that scenario that you used to be in, that you found yourself coming up out of. If you had some words of encouragement, some words of advisement, what would those words be to somebody that's in that zone, in that space that you used to be in, and to help them to see that there is a way out of this, there is a better path? What would be your insight on that?
Yeah. My insight would be to really and truly know your value. Like, your value is not tied to anything that you do career related, your relationship status, other material things like what you're wearing, what you're driving. You know, I feel like there was a point in my life where I was really caught up in those things. And that's because I felt like in order to have value, I needed to have those things. But you, me, everybody, like we have value the moment we were formed. The moment that the even the very idea of our being was conceptualized, that's when we have value. At that moment, like period. We have value just inherently. It's an inherent gift. It's an inherent right that we have. And so keeping that in mind has helped me out. I had to remind myself of that, I would say, the past couple months, because sometimes we do get caught up. You know, we're human beings. We're going to get caught up in that, you know, especially now in the days of social media and everything like that. You know, we're able to see a lot of what's going on in a lot of people's lives. And so it's easy to, you know, do the comparison game and to fall into the trap of envy, jealousy, or whatever else. But the one thing that all of us have, no matter where we are in our life, is value. And it's all the same. We are valuable people, period. No one's more valuable than the other just because of whatever stuff that they have. And so that's something that I would tell anybody. I would tell my younger self that to really grasp that and learn that. It took a lot of work and healing for me to come to that realization. And that realization does wonders because then at that point you move like you're valuable. Like, you won't settle for anything less in any area of your life,
Hmm.
because you know that you are inherently valuable. And if something is not aligning to your value, you don't have to invite it in. You don't have to accept it. And so I think that that's the main thing that I would say is know that you are valuable. Like I don't like to say know your worth anymore because sometimes people are like, well, then what's that? Like, what do we measure it by? When you say valuable, that clicks more because something that's valuable is prized, it's sacred, it's deemed important. It's something that a lot of people think is outside of them, so they strive for it. But it's not outside of you, it's in you, it's been within you. So that's was it the fullness of the deity resides in you. That's from the word. So it's like that's your value. Your value is coming from that. Like that's just what it is. And so that's definitely the word I would say to anybody listening, to my younger self who most certainly needed to hear it. Most certainly. Cause whoo girl, but and that's not to chastise my younger self. She got me here.
Hmm.
She was strong, she was determined. She pushed through a lot to get me here, and so I'm very thankful for her. But baby girl, you needed to know that you were valuable then and that there was nothing on earth that you needed to achieve or to receive to be valuable because you are.
Mm, that's powerful. I love that. I love that. Just and I
Hmm.
love you saying the distinction between don't just get caught up in saying my worth, but my value, because that emphasizes I'm priceless. If I'm a
Yeah,
valuable, it's there's not necessarily a specific dollar amount that would ever truly capture what that is. That's what makes you in that
exactly.
priceless category. So but as you said, the more you understand and embrace that value that you have, and understanding that it was there from the moment you were still in the womb, then you're,
Hmm.
like I said, you're less likely to settle for anything in all aspects, not just career, but relationships, whatever the scenario, friendships, you're not, I'm just not going to accept any old thing coming at me. You can't just talk to me any old kind of way. You just
Right.
can't relate to me any old kind of way. You just can't throw anything at me and just expect me to embrace it, like as if I'm just supposed to be thankful that you just did something for me.
Right.
If it didn't align with being someone who is valuable, then
Right.
again, thanks but no thanks. You can keep that.
Right.
So
Exactly.
and being okay with that. And if you think I'm cocky and arrogant, that's your opinion. I think
Yeah.
I'm valuable, and
Hmm.
that's the only thing that I subscribe to. And so
Right.
I love that. I love that. So before I let you go, Daphne, of course, this has been a pleasure having you aboard on the podcast and just sharing your
Thank
journey
you.
and your stories and insight. It's been awesome. But, here on the podcast, what I like to do is always end it on a high note. So this is our opportunity to, celebrate you, to love on you, to bless you. Please, if you have anything that's going on, any exciting news, any exciting happenings, please share that, as well as, if anybody is interested in connecting with services that you offer, how would they be able to connect with you and reach out to you and find out about that stuff?
Yeah, so I think the best way to connect with me, just to get that part done, would be on LinkedIn. And it's just, you can type in my full name, Daphne Benford Smith, and I should come up, pull up. And so that's Daphne Benford Smith, and I can send the information just so you can link that and people can, be able to get it easily as well. But um, like I said, opportunities have been, coming in for like the trademark and everything. And um, I have a final interview with a firm tomorrow, this that I think is aligned to what I want to do, how I want to practice. They encourage a more entrepreneurial approach to, being a part of their firm. And so I'll be able to have like that freedom and flexibility to do things like this and to connect with people, and to be able to help people protect their businesses. Like I said, I do trademarks and copyrights. I do contracts. There's some other practice areas I'm looking to, kind of venture into as well. But um, it really just, everything just lined up perfectly for this opportunity. And so I'm very excited about it. I literally have my final interview for it in the morning. Um, and I feel like it's mine. I feel like it's for me, but you never know till you know for sure. But I have like just that unbreakable feeling, that this is what I would have missed out on if I had settled for that, that previous position type of thing. And so I'm excited about that. I'm just excited about, feeling like I said, like everything's happened for a reason, and just being able to come out of it stronger and move forward. So, um, yeah, I would say that that's my news.
That's great. I
Yeah,
love that, and we'll definitely definitely keep you in prayer that that
thank
interview
you.
goes smoothly and just exactly the way it's supposed to, and that if this is in fact that opportunity that you've been looking for that aligns with your ideology, your belief systems, and just the passion that you have for the field that you're in, then let God have His way and make it happen. And if He sees otherwise, then that all that simply means is that even with this being as awesome as it is, he has something even more awesome. So we'll take either one, but we
You're
just gonna
right.
trust and
You're
believe
right.
that he's got it under control, and I'm excited for you, and just looking forward to seeing you just again, move forward in your passion and in your career, and
Thank you.
just being the best version of who you are, and we've talked about this before, and I still haven't forgot about you. So we still do need to connect on the business end as well.
Yes.
So definitely we'll be connecting and keep in touch in that regard as well. So and for
Awesome.
my awesome, yes, this has been great. I've thoroughly
Thank
enjoyed
you.
this time together. We had some kinks getting it scheduled, but we finally got it done. But it was definitely well worth the
Yes.
wait. So I'm
It
glad we
was.
were able
This
to
this
make it
was the
happen.
perfect time to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is beautiful. So for my listening audience, if you've enjoyed the content that has been shared this evening, you've enjoyed the stories, the journey that's been shared by Daphne, please by all means subscribe, share, like, comment, because this is again what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to encourage, we want to uplift, we want to inspire, we want to remind you that no adversity is too big for you to overcome, but it's important who you're connected with, what that source is. And we're telling you, a relationship with God is the most powerful and prosperous and beneficial relationship you can ever have. We're not telling you something that we've heard. We're telling you something that we know from personal experience. So if that's not a part of your life, I suggest, recommend, uh, impart in you. Please make that decision, and because God never intended for us to go through our struggles and our challenges by ourselves. And if He's allowing those things to come into our lives, it's not to hurt us, it's not to tear us down, it's to build us up, it's to develop us and create us in such a way, form us in such a way so we are ready to walk in the purpose that He intends for us to walk in. He has a specific plan of action for each one of our lives, and we want to live in that abundance. We want to experience it at all levels, to be not only to receive blessings, but to be the blessing to other people. So, with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, keep fighting that good fight, stay strong, continue to persevere, even in the midst of the storms. It's there to groom you, it's there to develop you, it's there to grow you, not to hurt you. Lean into God, His understanding, His direction, His guidance, His strength. He loves you unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for you. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, take care of yourselves.